Let's see.
Recording in progress.
Okay, got it. Unmute myself. Okay. All right, just checking. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, this morning I want to begin the sermon with a brief meditation. The words were written by Erica Hewitt, the UUA's Minister of Worship Arts and the current editor of Braver, Wiser, a weekly spirituality series, which some of you may have seen. I'll sound a singing bowl to begin and between the spoken elements, and then we'll conclude our meditation with the bell sounding 3 times. Title of Erica Hewitt's meditation is The Inherent Wholeness of Every Being. We who are Unitarian Universalist not only affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we also affirm the inherent wholeness of every being, despite brokenness, real or apparent. No one hearing these words is a stranger to pain or to the knowledge that things break or break down. Promises, friendship, sobriety, hope, communication. This breaking happens because our human hearts and our human institutions are frail and imperfect. We make mistakes. Life is messy. Brokenness happens. We're intimately acquainted with brokenness then, even as we believe that no matter how fractured we are or once were, we can make whole people of ourselves. We are whole at our core because of the great, unnameable, and sometimes inconceivable love in which we live. If love begins with attention, repair takes the form of compassion, of bearing witness, of speaking out. And it begins by placing full trust and faith that there is an inherent wholeness in every broken situation. As we sit now for a moment in silence, may we recognize and honor both the wholeness and the broken places in ourselves and in our culture at this time. Okay. Do you think of yourself as a resilient person? Have you experienced what researchers are currently calling post-traumatic growth? Resilience, according to one author, is that quality of character that allows a person or a group of people to rebound from misfortune, hardships, and trauma. Well, this morning, I want to look at something beyond resilience, as important as that is. Can we move beyond resilience so that we can not only rebound, but come back better than we would have without the hardship or trauma? This is what I would hope for each of us, and for each of us as individuals, for our families, for our congregations, ultimately our society and our world. We've all been through it the last couple of years, and it's part of moving forward. That's what post-traumatic growth is all about. I expect that most of us would agree that we have experienced enough trauma in the last couple of years to put this to the test. If you need a reminder, COVID, climate change, wildfire, wildfires throughout the West, chaos in government, racial unrest, threats to personal liberty, most recently, abortion rights, everywhere. So there's enough trauma out there. Briefly, researchers have found that sometimes we not only can rebound, but in fact grow through the experience, becoming stronger than we would have been had not this misfortune come into our lives. Now, don't get me wrong here. I am certainly not suggesting that we go out looking for hardship. At least my experience indicates that it will find us soon enough anyhow. So we don't need to go out, we certainly don't need to go out looking for it. Key research has been done by a couple of psychologists by the name of Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun that indicates that there is overwhelming evidence, of course, and we've seen the results of all of this, I think. Overwhelming evidence that traumatic events can produce very, very negative psychological and physical consequences. And these negative effects have been very extensively studied. But there's been a lot less attention paid to the possibility of a positive impact. And that's what this current line of research focuses on. And there is a body of literature starting to emerge that may suggest that people may perceive some good emerging from their struggles with tragedies such as rape, bereavement, cancer, HIV, heart attacks, disasters, the Holocaust, the whole bunch. Some of this research does not distinguish between, does the positive impact come from the trauma and how we adapt to it, or does it come from the healing process? I would definitely say without question it comes from the healing process, from processing the trauma in a safe and supportive environment. The healing grows out of that process, not out of the trauma. But so it's a couple of other questions that come up for me. Why is the spiritual or faith dimension so important for this kind of progression to happen? And then secondly, are there distinctive aspects of our UU faith that help us to facilitate this better than before kind of resilience? I believe what has pulled me through the various traumas I have faced and enabled me to come back stronger than before has in part been that for some good fortune, and I don't know why, but I've never lost the awareness that my life is embraced by something infinitely larger. Even though I've never named that something in a traditional way, and sometimes I don't name it at all. I'm not sure I care if it even has a name. It's just there. Faith or spirit, however you want to label that, is where we create meaning or find it. The things that happen to us. It's where we create meaning or find it in the things that happen to us. Devout theists might say that it's God's will when adversity comes to them, or at least that God is in control. Others might turn to karma, often misused, but that's another story. The thing about trauma is that it usually calls into question our own systems of meaning making, calls into question our old systems of meaning making, which means we have to do something different. And I'll come back to this, but just to name it right now, I think here's where we as UUs have a huge advantage and a huge gift to offer, is at that point where events pull the rug out from under our usual systems of meaning. It's not about explanation, but it's about meaning. It's about putting what happens to us in a context in which we can make some sense out of it, in which it can begin to mean something. This kind of experience is rooted in a tenacity of spirit, a determination to embrace all that makes life worth living, even in the face of overwhelming odds. When we have a clear sense of identity and purpose, we're more resilient because we can hold fast to our vision that a better future is possible. Faith helps us to find both the vision and the endurance, this sense of identity and purpose, to work for change, to keep working for change, to take one more step, so to speak. The social sciences, sociology, psychology, econ, can supply the nuts and bolts. They're less effective at encouraging vision, endurance, hope, and passion in the long run. Basically, they just don't cut it when it comes to that. The dimension of faith or spirit, I think, also helps us to keep our hearts open, to not contract around our suffering, to not pull on all the armor, not to lash out and become embittered and closed off. Keeps us open. Engaging at the level of spirit or faith is what will keep us working to end this national epidemic of senseless gun violence that flares up again and again. It'll sustain us to keep working till we succeed in making this a country in which the lives of the historically disenfranchised matter as much as our own. A society in which we embrace our responsibility for the good of the whole, and in which we work together to save our threatened planet and end this pandemic. So, what do we have to draw on, and what do we have to offer, specifically as Unitarian Universalists? In our congregations, be they in real time, in person, or on Zoom, like the vast majority of us have been for the last year and a half or so, we try to provide a safe and supportive environment. An environment in which people can be who they are, can bring whatever is in their hearts and minds to the table. We recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every person who comes through our doors. And we treat everyone with a combination of compassion and accountability. We've just been in my own congregation, we've been working through a process of creating a new covenant. I don't know when you all created yours, but we have just, within the last 6 months, I guess, finished creating a new covenant. And now we're at that point of starting to talk about how do we call people back into covenant when they have stepped off the path, so to speak. And I can't talk about how that's going to go because we just are starting that a week from today. So that remains to be seen. Part of that is that we're not afraid to address hard topics and strive to do so, again, with understanding, with compassion, that makes room for all points of view and creates an environment which people can speak from their hearts. Recently, particularly, a lot of our congregations, including ours, have facilitated more small group ministries that provide opportunities for close personal connection and deep speaking and listening, where trauma can be kind of collectively processed. I'm not really talking here even about therapy groups, but things like connection groups, dinner groups, which a lot of creative and brave souls are doing online. But just the day in, day out traumas of living with COVID and climate change and working from home while your kids are home, and that all those sorts of things that have gone on. On a community-wide level, many of our congregations encourage initiatives that can enhance access to critical social services, and access to these services is proven to enable both stability and growth. It's hard as the dickens to be resilient when we're wondering where the next meal is coming from, or where we'll sleep tonight, or worrying about whether to use our limited funds to buy food or buy diapers for our baby. That just does not foster resilience at all. Above all, I think we offer something distinctive to members of our congregations and to those who seek us out as visitors, and to our community at large, community way beyond our walls. The faith or spiritual dimension, which makes us a church and not a social service agency or a political action group. There's just limitless room out there for social service agencies and for political action groups. I'm not downplaying our need for those at all. But it's the faith or spiritual dimension that makes us a church. When someone seeks me out for a pastoral conversation, I feel pretty safe in saying that it has something to do with the fact that I'm a minister, not a secular counselor. Or even when we seek out a friend in our congregation to talk with, it's in part because they're church friends. I'm pretty sure probably everybody can pretty much relate to that. We're a community of faith. We support the unique ways in which each of us makes meaning in the world, whether it be faith in nature, faith in other human beings, faith in some kind of a deity, faith in the ground of being, however we express that. That which grounds us, that which keeps us from feeling as though we're dangling over some bottomless pit. We are a community. We are a faith community grounded both deeply and broadly in faith. We encourage spiritual growth, which is different from psychological, emotional, and intellectual growth, although they're all of those are related and they're all important. We're a supportive community where we can search for life's meanings, where we can, in a sense, try on new meanings when the old ones have suddenly come up bankrupt. We have a vast array of humankind's many religious, spiritual, and humanistic traditions, as your own covenant states, that we can draw on. So there's a lot to offer. There's a lot to offer to draw on for ourselves. There's a lot to offer to other people in this time when we're all dealing with collective trauma. We can move beyond simple resilience to growth. When we look at how to help that happen, the unique thing that we as a UU congregation bring to the table is a distinctive approach to the faith or depth dimension of human life and of human meaning, and to religious community. We have a unique approach, and one that I think offers a huge amount of promise, because we are a church. And thank you. I hope this has gotten some people thinking what we have to offer and what our congregations can offer us in this rather interesting, shall we say, time. And I might have done it before, but Amy, thank you for that children's story you picked out. That was wonderful. I'm going to refer our RE director, who is responsible for picking out our times for all ages, going to refer her to that one for sure. Okay, thank you.